在1分钟我们就开始喽，哈。好大家晚安我是 Roger 老师非常欢迎大家来到今天的一个专访那 Roman 大师今天与你在空中相会。那我是主持人周龙鸿 Roger 老师那在今天这个场合，我们要请到国际非常知名的一个这个 PO 专家。我们今天在敏捷界如果提到 SCRUM 那有非常多的一个大师可能会有超过10个那么多。可是如果提到 PO 大师的话，全世界可能就只有少数个位数，不会超过3根手指头。那其中一位就是我们的 Roman 先生好 Hi, I'm Roger. With me is Angel. Angel is the representative of the translation volunteer. Today, we are happy to have Roman Pichler be with us. Hi, Pinghui.
Hi, Rogers. Hi, Roman. It's very nice to meet you today, and it's my honor to be a representative of the translation volunteer. Thanks to Rogers to invite me. And it's very nice to see you and meet you today, Roman.
Yeah, it's lovely to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Roman. Thank you for your time and for accepting our invitation today. As you know, we have gathered a lot of passion volunteers for the publisher to translate your book, which is the Agile Product Management with SCRUM. And volunteers are from the project manager, product managers, the Scrum Master from IT industry, traditional industry, construction, and R&D. This is our honor to have an interview with you. Before starting today's interview, could you say hello to potential readers and fans in Taiwan? And for anyone just now discovering your work, could you please tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So again, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be with you. It's lovely to hear that so many people were involved in the latest translation of my book. That's really great. So I work as somebody who teaches product owners and generally product people, product managers, and helps organizations improve the way that they practice product management, particularly in an agile space. And I've been doing this for quite some time. I started working with product managers and agile practices a good 20 years ago, hence the gray beard. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
We know that Mr. Pichler is a leading PO master in the world and has more than 15 years in experience in teaching the product owners, maybe CSPO. You are helping a lot of companies to apply Scrum and achieve their business success. Could you talk about how you got started with Agile and Scrum?
Sure, yes. So the first time I applied agile practices was in 2001. And so I was working on a new product development effort. It was a new healthcare product. And we were called in because the development effort wasn't going too well. And as a new product was being developed and the whole organization was in difficulties, we thought it might be a good idea to try out an agile approach, and we used extreme programming. Unfortunately, I didn't know that much about agile and extreme programming at the time. And so ultimately it wasn't very successful. But I worked a lot with the product management team and tried to help the product managers understand how they can take advantage of agile practices. And then something similar happened in 2004 when I was helping an organization develop a new telecommunications product. And we introduced Scrum. And again, I ended up working quite a bit with the product owners in helping the product owners understand how this brave new agile world affects them and how they can leverage Scrum practices. So that's how I started out with agile and then with Scrum.
Wow. I'm curious. Do you know Ken Schwab? What's the relation with you?
Yeah, Ken Schwaber was very influential, really, in terms of my work and my development. So Ken was kind enough to come and teach the first Scrum training courses back at Siemens, where I worked between 2000 and 2005-06. And Ken was very supportive and really helped me, particularly in the early years. And so I am very grateful to the knowledge that Ken has passed on to me and the support that he's shown to me over the years.
Yes, because we see a lot of conversation in your book. You mentioned the Ken Schwaber. I think your Scrum is taught by Mr. Ken. And yes. Could you talk about what is your motivation for writing this book? This is the book that we have translated for you.
Hey, cool! Nice to see the cover. Brilliant.
Yeah, so this is fully written in Chinese. So let me explain. This book is translated by 18 volunteers, and we have come from Agile community, and we have a strong motivation to translate your book because this is the book of the PO Master. So in this book, what is your motivation for writing this book from 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, even a little bit longer, I think. So I started working on the English version of this book back in 2008. And when I started working on the book, there was no other book available for product owners. All the Scrum books that were available, all the Agile books focused more on the process side of things, focused more on coaching, so they're more geared towards Scrum Masters and line managers. And so I felt that it would really be beneficial to have a book for product owners based on my experience working with product owners. And then by that time, I'd started my own business and I had to think about the services and products that I wanted to offer and, be a product owner myself. And so, writing the book also helped me develop my own product owner practice or consolidate it. So that was the motivation, really helping product owners understand how they can leverage Scrum practices to maximize the value of their products and generally bring a little bit more clarity and understanding about the product owner role and how that role differs from a more traditional product manager role, but also a traditional project manager or business analyst role.
Okay.
I mean, you mentioned, you translated the book together with a group of volunteers. Could you share your motivation for doing this? I think there was a simple Chinese translation available that was published a few years ago. What was your motivation for now translating the book again?
Yeah, let me explain the difference of simple Chinese and traditional Chinese. Because it is like English that we have English of America and British English. They are the same, but there are a little difference. But the readers has their preference. For example, I use traditional Chinese, so I rarely look at the simple Chinese. And also for the simple Chinese people, they really look at the traditional Chinese. And the simple Chinese is used by the mainland China, and Taiwan is using the traditional Chinese. So to translate this book, it is what I want to do in China. This book was translated into simplified Chinese in 2013. But after 7 years, Taiwan completed this traditional Chinese version. I hope that through the assistance of the Scrum team, which the 18 volunteers, they are all here. And we will take a whole picture with you after this meeting. We translate this book into traditional Chinese about 3 weeks, and we use our own time, our holiday, and a lot of effort to translate this book into traditional Chinese, so that we can help Taiwan people to speed up the pace of the agile, especially in the product owner, because the product owner knowledge in Taiwan is very scarce. So I hope Taiwan readers can learn more about the concept of the PO through this book. And in Taiwan, there is some CSPO classes. They don't have training material. I think this book is good training material for them. And I am a Scrum trainer. I always co-train with the CST, which is Bill Lee. Maybe you know him. And to promote Scrum is my destiny and my curse. With great power comes great responsibility.
Thank you for sharing that.
And could you have give us a preliminary statement about this book to Taiwanese readers?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the product owner role, if you want to learn more about how Scrum can help you as a product owner, then you may want to take a look at the book. It discusses the product owner role. It talks a little bit about the product vision. It talks about things like the product backlog and managing the product backlog, prioritizing the product backlog, making sure that the product backlog is effective, that it has the right qualities. It talks about release planning, talks about the sprint events, taking advantage of the sprint planning meeting, the sprint review meeting in retrospective, for instance, and a little bit about transitioning into the product owner role as well. So it's a good introduction, I feel, to the product owner role and the work of a product owner in a Scrum-based environment.
Yeah. So the first print of this book is in the March of the 2010. There could be changes with today's product owner. What do you think about the role of the PO about in these 10 years? Is there something change?
So I think, yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So I think, in the various industries and in practice, we've seen a lot of changes, right? So Scrum and Agile methods are much more widespread these days. They've probably moved into the mainstream. When I wrote that book, 2008, 2009, they weren't as widely applied and practiced in any way. Product management in an Agile context, I think, is much better understood. We've got better tools available. We've got better techniques available today, and certainly more. But I still think there's a lot of confusion about the product owner role. And sometimes I think that confusion's actually increased. We have now the Scrum product owner and we have the SAFe product owner role. And even though, the role is called product owner, they're very different. I think SAFe product owner is quite different from a Scrum product owner. We still have issues around empowerment and respect. Often product owners don't have the right level of empowerment that they need to take charge of the product and really be accountable for the value that the product creates. And sometimes product owners find it hard to practice sustainable pace. That's just a lot to do. And sometimes product owners are being spread too thinly and being pulled into too many directions at once. There's still some challenges, and to a certain extent, I think the core challenges haven't gone away. There's more support, there's more information, there's more choice, but yeah, from my perspective, some of the core challenges still persist.
Wow. So could you give us some difference from your book for the readers if they want to be a good product owner?
If you want to be a good product owner, so there's certain qualities or characteristics that you may want to develop. So I think it's helpful as a product owner to be a team player and be willing to listen to the development team members and the stakeholders and appreciate people's perspectives and views. But at the same time, don't be afraid to make a decision and don't be afraid to have an opinion. And don't be afraid to own the product and move the product forward. Being a product owner, I think, means that you have to make some tough decisions and you can't always please everyone. And so it'd be a mistake to try and please the stakeholders and please the development team. It's important to listen to people. It's important to secure as much buy-in from those individuals as you can. But at the same time, you should try and make a decision that is right for your product. So do what is right for your product and choose the path where you have as much support from the stakeholders and development team members as possible.
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be maybe a suggestion or piece of advice.
Yes. And our volunteer Angel Pinghui is my co-host.
Yes.
Can you
Angel,
say something to audience?
Yeah. So nice to talk to you, Angel. You worked on the book as well. Can you share with us? Tell us what your motivation was.
Sure. Yeah. That's after I got the certification of the product owners. I still have a lot of questions about what's different between the product manager and the product owner. And how can I start to lead a team to understand the importance of the product owners and what the product owner could help the company as well. And I also want to know whether I'm in the right or wrong track in the organization as a product owner. So from your book, I found there is a lot of information, a lot of guidance to help me to understand the difference, and also to let me to know that what kind of product owner, how many type of product owner there is, and how can I to help me to share or to guide my company to understand the benefit of the product owner. And so, from my point of view, I'm really glad to know your book from the Rogers, and also to glad you wrote the book so we could understand more about the product owner and to know the actual words, what is product owner might face into it.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. And for me, I have a few questions I want to ask you. That I noticed that you have your own website, and on your website there's a lot of information about the Agile, Scrum, product owners, leadership, and the strategy as well. So could you give us some hints if we just started and we want to know more about the product owner after reading your book, where we should start to look into from your website?
Yeah. A good starting point might be my blog. So I've written a blog since 2010. So it's been 11 years now. And I try and address topics that I feel are helpful for product owners, are helpful for product people in an agile context. So there's more information available on the Scrum product owner role and different types of roles, that product management roles, I should say, or product ownership roles that may be beneficial. There's information available about scaling the role. There's more information available about the difference, say, between a product manager and a product owner, or a business analyst and a product owner. So that might be a good place to start. Yeah, I'd suggest that. And then there are a few templates that you could possibly look at, like my product vision board, in order to describe a vision and a product strategy. But maybe starting with the information on the product owner role might be a good idea.
Okay, thank you for your information. And also on your website, you have a lot of opening, like online trainings and also the workshop that we could register with. Could you tell us more about if we want to attend that, the time and how could we start it?
Right. So yes, unfortunately, all my workshops take place in the UK in the afternoon. So it would probably be a pretty late start for people in Taiwan. So I have to apologize for that. And I currently don't sort of have any earlier starts on offer. But yeah, if you want to take a look, I teach a product owner course. I teach a course on product strategy and product roadmaps, and I teach a course on leadership practices. And generally speaking, in order to become a competent product owner, to become a competent product person, I would encourage people to develop not only their skills around the product backlog and interacting with the development team, and maybe at least a basic understanding of technical products, things like user stories, things like prioritizing the product backlog, things like working with effective sprint reviews and product demos. Those are very valuable skills. But I think in addition to developing those skills, it tends to be a good idea to also understand what is a product strategy, and how can I ensure that the product serves the right users and addresses the right user and customer needs, that the product is sufficiently differentiated, creates enough value for the business, or then do a little bit of product planning and use a product roadmap. And these are the hard skills, what I would refer to as the hard skills. And then the soft skills are the leadership, the people skills around goal setting, in order to create alignment and help people move forward together. Things around listening skills, which can be quite helpful, I think, as a product owner, or collaborative decision making decisions together with the stakeholders and development team members. And again, these are skills I think all of us have, but it's beneficial to develop them, deepen them, and maybe pick up helpful techniques, such as using the right decision rules. When do I use a rule like consent, and when do I use a rule like unanimous agreement, and what does it mean anyway? So, generally speaking, that's what I would recommend, that you try and develop your skills in those three areas.
Yes, so it seems that there's a lot of skill we need to develop with. And also, as you mentioned, that we probably need to develop as like business concept, or the marketing thinking, those kind of things. From those information, it seems that to become a good product manager, seems that there is a huge amount of skill we need to practice. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's in the nature of the product owner role that, product management. So I view the product owner, the Scrum product owner, as a product management role. And originally the product owner in Scrum was referred to as product manager, was called product manager. And then Ken Schwaber in the late 1990s changed it to product owner to emphasize the level of empowerment and authority a product person requires, particularly in an agile context where we value collaboration, we value input from different people. So yeah, the product owner role is a product management role, and product management is a very broad discipline that it has lots of facets. There is lots to it. We benefit from having leadership skills, people skills, as I mentioned, strategic skills and tactical skills. We benefit from being able to work with a vision and strategy, and we benefit from getting involved in the execution and looking at the details. And so it's only natural that it takes time to develop the necessary skills. It's not something that you can typically do within a few days or a few weeks. It takes months, and more likely it takes years. And so it's important not to put yourself under pressure and not to be too impatient, but show some perseverance. But at the same time, continue the learning journey, continue to develop your skills, and from time to time, pause and reflect and say, where are my strengths? What are the things that I understand thoroughly? What are the skills that I have? What are the things I'm good at? And then focus on the areas that you could improve further. Maybe you've got some gaps in your knowledge, or maybe you've got some shallow bits where you could go deeper. So an example I like to use from my own practice would be pricing models. I've been pricing the services and the products of my business now for many years. But if you ask me to explain the benefits and drawbacks of different pricing models, I'll say like, well, I've read a book or two on pricing, but, and I do it, but I'm not quite sure. So, it just goes to show you, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we probably all have some little gaps or shallow bits in our knowledge. Nobody is perfect. And so just continue that learning journey. So I should probably read up on pricing policies at some point in time.
Thank you. And I also noticed from your website that you published a new book called How to Lead in the Product Management. Could you tell us more about this book, and whether it will any kind of information or any kind of internal inside of the book, whether it's have a relate with the Agile Product Manager, with the Scrum, or with the book which will translate?
Yeah, nice question. Thank you for asking that. So the books are related. What How to Lead in Product Management wants to do is offer techniques and offer practices to lead the stakeholders and guide the development teams. And so I wrote it based on my experience that the hard skills around product strategy, product roadmap, business model, and then the product backlog and all those good things are very important, but they're not sufficient. It's equally important that we strengthen our soft skills, our people skills. And so it talks about how you can build trust. It talks about how you can attentively listen to people. It talks about how you can make decisions together. It talks about things like how you can deal with conflict and how you can deal with difficult people, which is something that I find is very common for product owners, because we work with cross-functional development teams and the stakeholders come from different business units. So, there's likely to be a fair amount of diversity, which sometimes can give rise to friction and disagreement and conflict. So I've tried to offer practices for those areas that are really tailored for product owners, that are really tailored for product people, rather than having to go away and read several books on conflict management and conflict resolution, which of course you can do as well.
Yeah, it will take a lot of time. So is there anything you want us to know as well? That from your work, or what is your next planned coming book or coming like training or like podcasts? Anything new that you plan to release out to the market?
Yeah, so I'm working on an update of one of my books. But it's not Agile Product Management with Scrum. So an update of one of the other books, but it hasn't progressed far enough to really make an announcement. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to release the update later this year, or possibly next year. If it's released this year, then it's probably going to be towards the end of this year. It'll very much depend on the progress. Then the other initiative that I started is that I've decided I'd like to offer the monthly content that I generate and so far have exposed in form of articles and podcast episodes, also as YouTube videos. And that's still a little bit experimental. Yes, I think so. Well, in early stages. So if you want to check out my YouTube channel and offer feedback and see how those videos work for you, that'd be brilliant, because I'm still thinking about how to evolve it and where to take it from here. And so that's sort of what's happening at my end at the moment.
Wow, great job.
Thank you.
Mr. Pichler, there are some questions from audience. Can you reply for them? Because some are written in Chinese, so maybe I will translate for you. Brian asked that, can you tell us what is the difference between the project manager and the product owner? What's the difference? Maybe there are some project suitable for project manager, and there are some suitable for product manager. How do you differentiate that?
Yeah, nice question. So a product owner owns the product and should manage and look after a product for an extended period of time. That might be across many years, several years. And I think that's important because when you take a revenue generating product, then such a product typically doesn't become profitable until you've reached product market fit. So it may take a year, it may take 2 years, it may take even a little bit longer for that product to become profitable. And so it's important to have some continuity in terms of ownership. A project manager, by definition, looks after a specific initiative, after a specific project. And a project always has not only a clear start date, but also a clear end date. And usually that end date is predetermined. Now, in Scrum, there is no project manager, as you probably know. Now, that doesn't mean that there is no project management, but project management is practiced in a different way. So the way I look at this is that the product owner takes on some of the strategic project management responsibilities around, say, release planning, around scope management, around communications management, engaging the stakeholders. And then the development team takes on all the tactical, all the operational project management responsibilities, like time management in terms of identifying and tracking and managing activities on the sprint backlog. And so rather than having one central project manager who does it for a number of people, the project management responsibilities are now distributed. So they're collectively practiced, you could say. And because Scrum uses self-organizing teams, if you set things up in the right way, and if you practice the roles or fill the roles with the right people, then that works quite nicely in my experience. So if you implement Scrum correctly, you won't need a project manager. At least that's my, that's my view.
Wow, that's good. And you said the roles has been distributed to the PO and the dev team. How about Scrum Master?
Yeah, the Scrum Master is an interesting one when it comes to project management. So you could say that the Scrum Master is responsible for process compliance. I don't think many Agilists would use those words, process compliance. It's pretty old school, pretty hardcore. But I mean, the Scrum Master is called Scrum Master because the individual should have mastery of an agile way of working, and Scrum particularly, and hence should be empowered to tell people if what they're doing is aligned with agile values and principles, and if Scrum is practiced in an effective way or not. So you could say that part of the project management piece around process quality is soaked up by the Scrum Master. But I think it'd be a mistake to view the Scrum Master as a project manager, and or a delivery manager. The Scrum Master for me is a very different role. It's very much a coach. It's very much a supporting role, not a doer. So Scrum Master shouldn't create any release burndown charts or sprint burndown charts. That should be done by the product owner or the development team, respectively.
Wow, great job. And next audience says, it is Mike. It says, how to make a better decision when the PO has not enough of technical skill for a new product. So I think many PO is not technical based. So what's your comment on this?
I think generally speaking, that's okay. I mean, having said that, it will depend on the type of product that you look after. So if you look after a supporting technical product, like an internal platform, like an internal software platform that encapsulates shared assets, shared code, shared services, then for such an internal technical product, you typically do need solid technical skills. And often then architects and senior developers make good product owners of such a technical product. However, if you look after an end user facing product, you usually don't need in-depth technical skills. Your development team needs those skills. I think what is helpful is to have a basic understanding of how software technologies work, and particularly to take an interest in software technologies. But you don't have to be an expert in the specific technologies applied. You don't have to know, say, how a machine learning framework works, or you don't have to be able to code in Java or in C# or whatever it might be, whatever the programming language might be that your team uses. So that's really the job of the development team. So my advice would be, make sure that you have the right people on the development team, and to a certain extent, trust those individuals to do a good job. If not, it should show up pretty quickly.
Yes. Can you give a sample about your explanation above?
An example in terms of, sorry, Roger.
Your explanation is good, but some audience cannot understand. So can you give actual example of that PO?
Okay, yeah, sure, of course. So, okay, I'll try and use an example that I hope everybody can relate to. So if I was the product owner of the Amazon app that runs on my mobile phone, and so I have an iPhone here, iOS, yes, and I've got the Amazon app installed on this, and I'm now the product owner of such an app, like the Amazon app, an online retailing app, then I don't need any in-depth technical skills, right? Because I would expect that I have a team, or maybe two teams, and those individuals develop, they design, and they develop and they test the app, and they have all the knowledge and skills they need. However, if I was in charge of Amazon Web Services, AWS, and that's a platform that is, for instance, used by a cloud-based platform that is, for instance, used by Netflix, it's a technical product, and it exposes not a user interface, but it exposes APIs, interfaces, right? Technical interfaces. So in that case, I would need in-depth technical skills and in-depth technical knowledge. Because the users now aren't consumers, but they are members of the development teams that code against the AWS platform. Yeah, so it very much depends on what kind of product you look after. If you look after a technical product, you need technical skills as the product owner. If you look after a consumer-facing, end-user-facing product, you usually do not need those skills.
Wow. Wonderful! You are PO master. I think everyone can know your meaning with a good example. And next question. This is from our volunteers on translating the book. He's called Eric, and he will go to Philippines next week. He says, "Dear Roman, have you ever been to Taiwan? Can you tell us how you see Taiwan into this business world?"
Unfortunately, I've never been to Taiwan, so it's one of the places that I still need to go and visit, and so difficult for me to comment on the question, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, in Taiwan there is a very tall building called 101. In 5 years ago, I think it's the highest building in the world. Not building, but a skyscraper.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, and for next, audience says, as a product owner, could you please give any suggestion to craft a sprint goal and reach to the same consensus with the whole team?
Yeah, sure. A nice question. Thank you for asking it. So, I think a sprint goal is best understood as describing a desired outcome or benefit. So I think a mistake that many teams make is that they say, well, our sprint goal is to implement user story A, B, C, D and build a product increment that implements the functionality. But the user stories are the input for the sprint, and the product increment is the output. The sprint goal should describe why we want to implement these user stories and why we want to build such a product increment. So what is the benefit that we want to achieve? Is it, for instance, to answer a question about the user interaction? So an example I like to use is, imagine I want to offer a healthy eating product, a product that helps people eat more healthily. Now, for such a product, for such an app, I may want to ask people about their weight and their age and their dietary requirements, their eating preferences when they activate the product. But I might be concerned that people are not happy to share personal information before they've started to use the product and in a way build trust in the product. So that's something I could do in the first or maybe second or third sprint. I could formulate a sprint goal that says, understand if people are willing to share personal information during the activation process of the app. Or at a later stage, once I've built more functionality, I could say, my sprint goal is to be able to release a first product increment to selected users in order to understand if the product works for them in the wild, in the day-to-day use, and get more feedback and better quality feedback. So the sprint goal should always ask, why are we doing what we want to do? And then in terms of crafting sprint goals, I find it very useful to do it together with the development team, and there should really be an agreement. There should really be consensus about a sprint goal. That means a development team should be reasonably happy with the sprint goal, or at least understand it and think it's meaningful. And ultimately, it has to be realistic as well. The development team has to feel that people, people can fully meet the sprint goal within the next sprint or the upcoming sprint. And then if you follow the advice of the latest Scrum guide and you work with a product goal, then you can use that product goal as a guidance, or a guide, maybe I should say, and derive your sprint goal from the product goal. So if my product goal was to create an MVP, a first offering of my healthy eating product, then I could ask myself now, what would be, and maybe acquire an initial user base and help people understand, become more aware of their eating habits. Then I could ask myself, okay, what could be now a first step towards meeting, that overarching goal of acquiring a user base and helping people understand their eating habits? What could be a first step? What could be a sub goal? So maybe those tips are helpful.
Yeah, thank you for Roman's answer. Okay. And this is a question from our audience. She's lovely Kavi. He said, thanks, Mr. Pichler. Saying no is an essential qualification and empowerment. Could you let us know what the last time you told a stakeholder no? No. How did you approach and what was the reason for it?
Right. When was the last time? I can't quite remember when it was the last time, but I don't necessarily always follow my own advice, and I'm not always very diplomatic. But over the years, I've learned that before I say no to somebody, it's a good idea to first of all attentively listen. And if somebody comes up with an idea, or if even somebody comes up with a request, or even if I feel somebody is demanding and says like, well, we must do this, or you must do this, that I first try and understand the individual and understand why is the individual saying this and why is it important to the individual? What's the motivation? What are the underlying needs behind it? And empathize with the individual. And also do a little bit of relationship building and establish trust, or maybe deepen trust. And I think that's really, really important, because it allows me then to make a better decision and a more informed decision. But also, if I feel that I can't accommodate the request of the person, the individual, the stakeholder, if I've attentively listened to that person, to the individual, the person will feel understood and will feel appreciated. And then hearing the no and accepting the no will be easier. And, the person may not be happy about me saying no, but it'll be much easier. If somebody comes to me and says, Roman, you must do this, or we must do this, and I was like, no way, no, then, that might be hard to swallow. That might be hard to accept. And so I think you always try. My advice to product owners is, be kind, but be firm. Right. I mean, as I said earlier, don't make the mistake to try and please people. Of course, you'd like people to be supportive, and we rely on the help and the support of the stakeholders and development team members. But at the same time, I think we must not the mistake of making weak compromises to achieve that support and please individuals. Successful products are not built on the smallest common denominator. And one of the very motivations for having a product owner is to avoid design by committee, right? To make those weak decisions and weak compromises. So yeah, be kind and firm, and empathize with the individual. So use empathy, but also use data. Clearly explain to the individual why you can't take on a request, why you have to push back and say no. So that'd be my advice.
Okay. 品慧，你不是要问Roman?
Yes, sure. Okay. So I just want to take over and try to ask a few questions that one of the questions actually is from the Roger that the new Scrum guide mentions product goal, and he wondered that what is the relationship with the visions and the sprint goal. Could you help us to understand more?
Sure. Yeah. So I personally was quite pleased. I was pleased that the Scrum Guides suggests using the latest version of the Scrum Guide suggests using a product goal. And the Scrum Guide really is authored by the two Scrum founders, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland, and tries to describe what is the essence of Scrum. What are the essential Scrum practices? What is the Scrum framework? And the reason that I was pleased about the addition of a product goal is that I've suggested using product goals now for a number of years, and I find them very useful. So I personally have very positive experiences with using product goals. Now, the way I like to use a product goal is that I think of it as a longer term benefit. And I think the Scrum Guide says something similar. The Scrum Guide says it's a longer term objective, and it's in the product backlog, and it directs the work of the product owner and the development team. And it's really a goal to align everyone. And I think that's a great idea. And I typically like to say, well, what is long term? From a Scrum perspective, I guess short term is a sprint, so somewhere between a week and 4 weeks. I'd say a product goal, a good time frame for a product goal is maybe somewhere between 2 months and 6 months. And then it should really describe a benefit, or it should describe an outcome. So for instance, help users become more aware of their eating habits, and at the same time, by doing so, acquire an initial user base. So that'd be a candidate for a product goal. And the sprint goal is then something that helps us achieve the product goal. So the sprint goal will be dependent on the product goal, will be maybe derived from the product goal, but it certainly should be aligned with the product goal and support the product goal. So sprint goal and product goal are different. A product goal is more, you could say, somewhat strategic, or certainly higher level. And the sprint goal is more detailed, more tactical, more execution oriented. In terms of the type of goal that it is. Now, for me, the vision, again, is something very different. I find the vision is best understood as the ultimate purpose for creating the product, the positive change it should bring about. So, for instance, a vision might be healthy eating, or help people eat more healthily, or even a bigger vision might be help people live more healthily. So it's nice to have a big vision, ideally a vision that's inspiring. Ideally, it's a shared vision that the stakeholders and development team members buy into. And I like to keep it concise, like using a slogan can be a nice way to formulate a vision. And then what I like to do is, in order to get from this big high-level vision that, may last for 10 years, possibly longer, and you may never fully meet, may never fully realize, to get to a more, focused, specific, measurable product goal, is I like to then identify the user goals, the user needs, and the business goals, the business needs. And so for me, user goal and business goal, user need and business need, they are the prerequisite for determining the right product goals. So that's the way I like to use them, and that's the way how I've described them in a blog post. And in fact, my new article that I'll publish probably next week or week after next, my new blog post, we'll talk about product goals, so you can find more information in that article if you'd like to. But I also write about product goals and the hierarchy, the goal hierarchy that I've just described in my book, How to Lead in Product Management, if you want to take a look. So I find goals very, very helpful. I find working with goals very helpful in order to align people and create shared outcomes, but at the same time to give people the autonomy to do their job. I mean, that's one of the key ideas with the sprint goal, right? To have a shared purpose and alignment, but then allow the development team or the development teams to go away and do their work. Because as product owners, we don't want to babysit the development teams. And for development team members, it's not nice when the product owner is permanently there and says, do this or that, or even I have to permanently ask the product owner, should I do this or should I do that? And what about this? It's like, we want to enable people so they can do their work in a fairly autonomous way.
Thank you.
Wow, great job. Mr. Pichler, we have a community called PO community, and its organizer is KK, and KK wants to ask you a question by microphone, but she is shy. Huh? KK?
Yeah, hi. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Roman. I'm Caitlin, who DM you on LinkedIn previously. Maybe you remember me. All right. So I've heard you suggest us to focus on the product backlog, right? And you also mentioned you are so familiar with Scrum. So since we know there are lots of Scrum patterns. So for example, like enabling spec and definition of ready. And I'm curious about how to how to calculate the value and ROI.
Cool. Yeah, nice question. So how do you calculate value and return on investment? And is return on investment the right metric to use? So for me, that goes back to asking what is the specific user goal that the product should help meet, or what is the specific user needs that the product should meet, and which specific benefits should the product bring about? Yeah. So for my healthy eating product, I'd have to think about who are the users and what are their needs. And maybe I say, well, users could be middle-aged men like myself, who don't always maybe have very good eating habits. And what could be the benefit to them? What could be the user need? What could be the main user goal? Maybe to reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Yeah. And maybe I can make this even more specific and say, reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 10%. And then I'd have to ask myself, okay, what about the business goal or the business goals? And maybe the business goal for my business would be to diversify my company, my business, and to open up a new revenue source. And maybe there's a target that I can stipulate. Maybe I can say there's a certain amount of money I want to make within the first 1 or 2 years after releasing the product. Yeah. So you have to be clear on what is the motivation for people to use your product and maybe pay for your product if it's a revenue generating product, and what is the benefit for your business in order to develop and offer the product. And once you're clear on this, and once you've formulated that value specific enough, you can then choose the right metrics, the right KPIs in order to measure the value creation. But it really starts by understanding why should we offer that product? Why would anybody want to use it? Why would anybody want to pay for it? And why would my business want to invest in it? You know, what's in it for the business? This is, I think, where we need to start. And then we can determine how do we now measure the goal attainment, the goal creation. And it might be that you say it's a combination, and maybe return on investment is the right metric, possibly. For a brand new product, it wouldn't, because, you know, I think it's difficult to measure profitability for a brand new product. So I personally probably wouldn't use ROI at that stage. But maybe it's really revenue what we measure. Maybe it's market share that we measure. And from a user customer perspective, it could be that we measure net promoter score and referral rates, for instance, or maybe engagement, daily active use, in order to understand if the product is creating enough value for the users. Was that helpful?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. For next question, here is say, with expertise of PO, what would you have been working with business analysis, and what sort of skill sets have you implemented most useful or most effective that you would suggest people to acquire to be a decent PO?
Right. Cool. Yeah, nice questions. So I think there's, in a way, an overlap of the work of business analysts and product owners. And I've experienced the way the business analyst role was applied. You know, how should I put this? In my experience, there is no one right way or no one specific way to work as a business analyst and apply the business analyst role. So I think ultimately we'd have to look at how is the business analyst role implemented, how is it practiced in a specific company, and then what is the difference to the Scrum product owner. But I found in my work that business analysts often are focused on engaging with business stakeholders and business units, eliciting requirements, describing requirements, and then communicating those requirements to development teams. Now, that is part of what a product owner does, but it's also something that an agile Scrum-based development team should help with. So requirements engineering, you could say, and requirements management is a shared responsibility in Scrum, shared between the product owner and the development team. And that goes to show that there is no easy fit for a business analyst in Scrum. And so, you know, I tend to say, if you're a business analyst and you want to work in Scrum, you've got two basic choices. One choice is to become a team member, but that will mean a change in your role in your day-to-day work. Or the other alternative is to become a product owner, but that'll mean a change as well. So you'll have a solid base to build on in terms of your tactical skills, even though some of that product backlog work should be shared with the development team, but you typically have to acquire some other product management skills around product strategy, product road mapping, the business model, financial forecasting, maybe also around stakeholder alignment, stakeholder management. You know? So what I would suggest, you know, is always look at your current skill sets, analyze your current skills with its strengths and weaknesses. Maybe think about using that model that I very briefly characterized earlier. Sort of think about your tactical skills around product backlog and, you know, interacting with the development teams. Think about your strategic product management skills and your leadership skills, and then think about the role you want to move into, and essentially do a gap analysis. And then decide how you best strengthen those skills, what the right learning and development measures are.
Okay, it's time to end because 3 minutes to 10 o'clock. So thank you so much for the discussion with us today, Mr. Roman. We are honored to have snug a bit of your time to share your thoughts with Taiwanese readers. I believe this book will be very influential in the future of agile management in Taiwan.
Well, thank you for having me. It was thank you for asking, sharing questions to everyone. It was lovely to be with you, and I hope it was a little bit beneficial.
Yes, and attendees, I encourage you to look into the Roman products books. The Roman thoughts in the book and the answers in the interviews help to illuminate some of your own paths too, especially if you are facing the obstacles onto the path of the agile product development. We hope that when you read this book, you can realize why a group of volunteers, translators that are willing to make of selfless contributions. Thank you again, Roman, and we hope you and your family are healthy and safe during this time. So, Roger, did you have anything else that I want to remind everyone in the meetings?
Yes, of course. We need to take a big picture, very, very big picture. We are 350 persons online. So, Mr. Roman, can we take a picture with us? You can click the upper right corner. There is there is a function to see all the audience. Yeah.
You could click on the view and the gallery and to see how many people that.
Wow, I see a lot of people. 好，大家好，请大家开视讯Can you please open your webcam so we can take a picture with Mr. Roman? Okay. So can you give encouragement to Mr. Roman with your hands? Any sign? Okay. 来，3、2、1。Because we have 350 people, so we need to take 7 shots. Each shot is 50%. Second screenshot. Okay, please look at the camera. 1, 2, 3. And the third shot. 1, 2, 3. And the fourth shot. 1, 2, 3. And the fifth shot. 1, 2, 3. And the sixth shot. 1, 2, 3. And the last shot is 350. 1, 2, 3. And I, for the sake of risk management, I repress screen for the first one. Okay, Mr. Roman, can you have any could we just your hand for the encouragement to the Mr. Roman? 请大家为Roman 挥挥手表示欢迎。Okay, 1, 2, 3. Wow. That's terrific. Okay, so Mr. Roman, we have a small dream. Our volunteer, 20 volunteers are here. We want to take a picture with you. Can we?
Of course.
Yeah. So we will move to a small meeting room. Then we will take a picture. Okay. 好，那其余的观众，我们今天到这边为止哈。那今天非常感谢你们的一个参与。那我看有些人他有提问没有发问实在很抱歉，但是我们时间有限。那我们今天的会议就到这边好，那我们请剩下来的一个志工那个翻译的志工留下来其他人可以先离席。好，那你可以把我们拉到小会议室去了。
Okay, let's go.
Can we talk now?
Yeah, of course.
大家可以跟
Finally.
So finally I can talk.
Finally.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, hi,
Nice to
Roman. It's a very honor to be the volunteer. Actually, that's a really good book for like being the product owner. There's a lot of knowledge we can learn from here. Yeah. And I also like just send you the message on the LinkedIn. I want to connect with you. Hope you can accept that.
Yeah, so thank you for translating the book. It's lovely to see that so many of you work together. It's really lovely. It's really great.
Wow. Let's take a picture with Roman with our books.
A little bit fuzzy.
One moment.
Why?
Oh,
everybody.
Where's Ned? Ned 啊，Ned 要拍照吗？我们一起拍好了。好，
Okay.
来，来，你要喊3、2、1哦，来。
等一下，我拍照没办法拿我 I can't take the picture with my.
Okay, I take a picture for you. Okay, 来。
Okay.
3，
It's bye bye. Thanks.
没有，你拿钱，因为我有另外一只手。来 ，3、2、1。OK， 等一下我放在 line 啊。OK, take the second shot. Okay. Mr. Roman, can you raise your hands up to us?
Awesome.
Wow, thanks. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The last one. We can raise any hand sign with your will. 来，大家笔记喜欢的手势哈，来，3、2、1。好，来 ，Roman, what's your hand sign?
So stupid, sorry.
1, 2.
Five, yeah, 5.
Okay.
High five. That's it.
Why?
Yes.
The high five.
Yeah. Social
A
distance.
virtual high five.
OK.
Yeah.
今天特别福利啊，
Nice.
大家有什么问题可以问 Roman 一下。Can you share something to Roman about your experience? OK. Anyone? 来。
Ooh.
KK, you can go first. I thought you have some questions.
Well, sorry, I wear a mask because I got a cold and I want to protect my family. And I'm just curious about math question related to math again, on how to calculate NPV, net present value. So because in Taiwan we seldom do that kind of things. For example, most of the time I calculate the value by just like marketing metrics, but we seldom use NPV. So I'm very, very curious about how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to be honest with you, it's been a little while since I last used net present value, so I'd have to look up the formula myself. But but it's sort of a little bit related to one of the questions I asked, I answered earlier, and that is, there's some key performance indicators, some measurements or metrics that are generic. So it tends to be that sort of assess the general health of a product. So things like product quality, number of defects, or code complexity. So that's something you can in a way always measure, and that's always beneficial to look at. And then there's some people-related metrics like team motivation, absence rates, turnover rates. Are people getting ill more and taking sick leave? Has somebody started to leave the team? And these are very helpful health metrics. I call them health metrics for your product. Okay, but in addition to those generic health metrics, any other metrics that you use, and any other data that you look at and track, like net present value, NPV, that should really depend on your specific goals, your specific product goals, and your specific user and business goals. And you have to be aware of the life cycle stage your product is in. Not every metric and not every financial metric is appropriate for every life cycle stage. So any profit-based metric with any profit targets and measuring profit margins, for instance, is something that usually isn't meaningful in the introduction stage before you've reached product market fit. So I'd always, if somebody comes to you and says, what is the net present value that your product has been generating over the last 12 months? My initial reaction would be, why would that be a useful piece of information? why is the person interested in that? And is that really a piece of information that I should look at for my product? And again, go back to what are your product goals? What are the goals that you have? What are the goals that you want to achieve with your product? And what are your overarching user and business goals? And based on these, select your metrics, your measurements.
I see.
So that'd be my approach. Yeah, because otherwise, one person says we got to measure net promoter score, and the other person says, oh, we've got to measure net present value. Another person says, no, we've got to measure return on investment, and this is how we're going to measure it. And a third person says, like, no, it's about engagement. It's like, oh my God, what do I need to measure? How can I tell? You can't unless you really go back to say, like, what are the user goals or the user needs? What are the business needs or business goals? And what are the specific product goals that I want to achieve over the next 12 months? And then I can select the right measurements.
I think it's really reasonable to stick on the business goal for product management. Yeah, thank you. Kevin, you want to ask something, right? I saw your face.
No, just after that question, I just got kind of like have something in my mind, just asking Roman, that how did you like determine whether the idea is worthwhile investment? I know you might consider like customer certification rates or like a sub out from the customer for a new product. But what's the normally you will decide will go for the idea for the product?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, it's very useful when I have a new idea to capture that idea. And I quite like to write down, again, who are the users, who are the beneficiaries of that product, why would people want to use that product, what's the value proposition, what are the business goals, and what would make the product stand out. And then to validate that information and, be in a way critical and say, like, am I confident that I've chosen the right target group? Am I confident that I've chosen the right user needs? Am I confident that the business goals are realistic? And carry out some validation and do some necessary research. And that might be interviewing people, it might be observing people, it might be creating a technical prototype, it might be looking into, say, sales and distribution channels or marketing channels in order to really explore if that idea is viable or not. And so I wrote about this in my book, Strategize, in terms of formulating an initial strategy and then testing that strategy and iterating over that strategy and getting that strategy right. And for me, that is really the prerequisite for then being able to derive a product backlog and for being able to choose the right KPIs and the right product goals. I mean,
Thank you.
You might also find it helpful to take a look at some of the product discovery articles. I think there are only 2 or 3 on my website.
Okay.
Anyway, maybe, so you don't have to necessarily buy a book, but if you look at my website, you get the strategy articles and the discovery articles, you might find that a little bit helpful.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your explanation.
Sorry, Mr. Roman, because we have 2 volunteers that is late, so they just come in. So could we take a book and take a picture with you?
Again.
Again. 来，那个大家看镜头一下哈。来，那个 Jeff 佩简，
我的是模糊的，
然后品慧，
是我模糊的。
好 ，OK。翠芬进来了吗？在哪里？看到 OK 好，世勋老师，你还没拿到书啊 ？OK 好，来 ，Let's take a picture。1, 2, 3。Another one。1, 2, 3。Okay. Nice ending. Thank you for Roman's time today. Thank you very much. We appreciate
for your time
very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for organizing it. Nice to meet you all. And thanks for all your work. And nice to meet you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye
bye.
Bye. See you, Roman.
Bye. See you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
哇。
我们留下吗？
哇，真是和世界级大师合照，真是，
好过瘾啊！
我们还要留下吗？
对啊，对啊，
还是
不像我想象那么有距离感，蛮有亲和力的。
很 nice 啊。
对啊，不过他说他是德国人呢，哈，
英国腔很重。
英国腔很重，哈。
我们要讨论什么吗？没有的话，
我们那个天下没有不散的筵席啊，总是要结束。好，希望下一程 US 圣经。好 ，OK，
非常感谢
谢谢大家，谢谢品慧，
谢谢老师，
拜拜，
拜拜，
拜拜，大家晚安，
拜，
好，晚安。